In the early hours of June 23, 1993, a quiet neighborhood in Manassas, Virginia, became the unlikely setting for a story that would shock the world. Behind these doors, a tale of love, betrayal, and unimaginable violence was about to unfold, a story that would dominate headlines and spark a global media frenzy. This is the story of John and Lorena Bobbitt, a young couple whose turbulent marriage would culminate in one of the most notorious crimes of the 20th century. What happened that night not only changed their lives forever, but also ignited a national conversation about domestic abuse, sexual violence, and the power of the media. This is the shocking case of John and Lorena Bobbitt, a tale of abuse, revenge, and media frenzy. Before we dive on, please kindly subscribe to our YouTube to support us. Thank you. Let's continue. John Wayne Bobbitt, a U.S. Marine turned civilian, and Lorena Gallo, a young woman from Ecuador, met in 1988. Their romance quickly blossomed into a whirlwind marriage, filled with hopes and dreams for a bright future. But behind the smiles in these photos, cracks were beginning to form. Lorena, who had immigrated to the United States in pursuit of the American dream, found herself in a marriage that was far from the fairy tale she had imagined. John, once the charming and attentive partner, began to show a darker side, one marred by accusations of infidelity, financial troubles, and escalating tension. On the night of June 23, 1993, the tension between John and Lorena reached a breaking point. After an evening out, during which John had been drinking heavily, the couple returned home to their apartment in Manassas. According to Lorena, what happened next was the culmination of years of abuse. Desperate and emotionally shattered, Lorena claimed she could no longer endure the pain and humiliation. In a moment of fury, she retrieved a kitchen knife and returned to the bedroom. At approximately 3:30 a.m., Lorena severed John's penis while he was asleep, a moment of violence that would soon become infamous around the world. In a state of shock, Lorena fled the apartment with the severed organ in hand, eventually throwing it out of the window into a field. She then drove to a friend's house and confessed what she had done, setting off a chain of events that would captivate the nation. The police were quickly notified, and a frantic search began for the missing piece of John's anatomy. Miraculously, it was found and successfully reattached after an emergency surgery that same morning. Almost immediately, the case became a media sensation. The bizarre and graphic nature of the crime, combined with the couple's young age and attractive appearance, made it irresistible to the press. News outlets from around the world descended on Manassas, turning the small Virginia town into the epicenter of a media circus. Day after day, lurid details of the couple's marriage were splashed across the front pages of tabloids. The media painted John as either a helpless victim or a villain, while Lorena was portrayed as either a crazed attacker or a wronged woman driven to the edge. The public was captivated, with people choosing sides in what became a cultural phenomenon. The Bobbitt case became fodder for late-night comedians, talk shows, and water-cooler conversations. It seemed everyone had an opinion, and the line between serious reporting and entertainment began to blur. The case highlighted how the media could turn a personal tragedy into a spectacle, often at the expense of the individuals involved. As the media frenzy continued, both John and Lorena faced their own legal battles. John was tried and acquitted on charges of marital sexual assault, a charge that, at the time, was rarely prosecuted. Lorena, meanwhile, was charged with malicious wounding, a felony that could have led to 20 years in prison. Lorena's defense centered on the years of abuse she claimed to have suffered at John's hands. Her legal team argued that the attack was not premeditated but rather the result of temporary insanity caused by the trauma she had endured. The trial captivated viewers, who watched as Lorena tearfully recounted the abuse she had allegedly suffered. The defense called expert witnesses to testify that Lorena had been driven to a breaking point, while the prosecution painted her as a vindictive woman who had acted out of malice. After 7 hours of deliberation, the jury found Lorena not guilty by reason of temporary insanity. She was ordered to undergo a 45-day psychiatric evaluation, but was ultimately released without serving any prison time. Following the trials, both John and Lorena struggled to move on from the ordeal. John attempted to capitalize on his newfound notoriety by venturing into the world of adult entertainment and making numerous television appearances. However, His attempts to profit from the situation were met with mixed success. John's life after the trial was marked by financial struggles, legal troubles, and ongoing issues with substance abuse. He would later claim that the events of 1993 had derailed his life, leaving him with a tarnished reputation and few prospects. Lorena, on the other hand, sought to rebuild her life by becoming an advocate for victims of domestic violence. She started the Lorena Gallo Foundation, which aims to support victims of abuse and raise awareness about the issue. Over time, she transformed from a figure of scandal into a voice for those who suffer in silence. Through her advocacy, Lorena has sought to turn her traumatic experience into something positive, helping others who find themselves in similarly abusive situations. The case of John and Lorena Bobbitt remains one of the most infamous in American history. It sparked a media frenzy, ignited debates about domestic violence and sexual assault, and became a symbol of how sensationalism can overshadow serious issues. Today, the Bobbitt case is often referenced in discussions about media ethics, the treatment of domestic violence victims, and the complexities of marital relationships. More than 2 decades later, both John and Lorena have moved on with their lives. But the case that brought them into the spotlight will forever be a part of their stories and a reminder of the dark realities that can lurk behind closed doors.